The one thing that often helps is putting ourselves back as much as we can into the frame of reference that we had at that point in time and reminding ourselves, what data were we aware of? Not even what data we had, because maybe data was sitting there that we hadn't noticed. This is what uncommon leaders are, that they can be in relationship with themselves and with their teams and with their organization, even when they are not at all in relationship with themselves or their teams or their organizations.
We can borrow another person's vagal state, especially as leaders. It's contingent upon us to think about that we radiate confidence, and it can be infectious, or we can stay the rock in the rapids and tell other people just by our actions and our tone.
Fresh insights into what it means to lead today. Whether you want more innovation more easily, you are feeling burnt out or overwhelmed, or you simply know that something isn't quite the way you know it can be, you are not alone. I hear the same from leaders every day. On Uncommon Leadership, we explore aligning personal fulfillment with business success, creating authentic teams, and cultivating the resilience, adaptability, and ease necessary to move beyond simply surviving today's challenges into thriving. I'm Michael Hunter with Uncommon Teams, and today we'll uncover fresh insights into what it means to lead today. And joining me is Jon Bach. Jon has been in software development, testing, and program management for 30 years, including Microsoft, Hewlett-Packard, and eBay. Testing to him is journalism, the pursuit of truth by asking questions, gathering important information, and reporting it to others. Software testing is about knowing the truth, but truth is also contextual, which makes it fun. The crux of it is a treasure hunt. The product comes to testers already broken. How can we get it to tell us where those breaks or treasures are hiding? Welcome, Jon.
Thank you, Michael. Great to be here.
And this is a very special episode of Uncommon Leadership because it is episode 100. And so we are flipping the mic. And rather than me asking you a bunch of questions, today you get to ask me, where are we going to start?
Yeah, my degree is in journalism. Way back in the day, before I started in tech. And my brother James convinced me very quickly that, as you said, that software testing for me is a treasure hunt. You're looking for the truth, but it depends what the truth is. And so today you've given me the opportunity to ask you questions. I guess you could consider it me testing you by virtue of trying to elicit from you why you are the way you are. And I just want to jump in with the first question that I have about uncommon leadership. I think you mentioned this on one of your early podcasts. How do we become an uncommon leader? And you said by leading uncommonly and seeing people as people and helping them leverage their gifts. Tell me more about that. What does it mean now that this is your 100th podcast? Has that definition changed? What is uncommon leadership to you now?
Uncommon, part of it comes from what I see from a lot of leaders mirrors what my career path has been, which I summarize as I started out debugging code as a developer and a tester and all the other roles. Then I started becoming bored with that and became more interested in the people side of things. So I naturally moved into debugging people. This was a lot of fun, but it didn't always go so well. And I realized this is really inflicting help because I haven't asked these people, can I dig into what's going on inside their brains and psyches and emotions and bodies and hearts and minds and spirits? So then I switched over to debugging, helping people debug themselves. And this is where I do today. And that's because the most important upgrade we can make to our product, to our business, to our tech stack isn't in any of those things. It's in ourselves. And I know for myself and what I see in many of the people I work with that however, it's understanding what's really going on inside ourselves is super hard. It's like when we do software testing and we treat the product as a black box and we're doing things and we're trying to find all the places where it might surprise the customer or a hacker or someone else. If we have to do that entirely with that as a black box, we're kind of shooting in the dark. We have to guess, and hopefully we stumble across something that then leads us to a bunch of other things and we can do some good inroads. However, if we can get into what's actually going inside, whether that's looking at the code, looking at logs, actually, in the best case, being able to hook up a debugger so that we can watch what's going on with all of the data and other interactions across all the threads and everything else that's going on, then we have a way better chance of finding the surprises that are really going to matter and really going to make a difference. And this is what I do with the leaders I work with, is help you build your own debugger and breakpoints and watch is for what's going on inside so that you can understand and translate that out and then edit your code, shift things in real time in safe ways to help you be more the leader that you want to be, whatever that means for you.
Yeah, what to you, speaking of black box testing versus more gray box or white box testing, where you see the code, or like you said, you look into log files and you can see the structure. What's the analogy for you as a leader, or to your advice to leaders to do more white box or gray box testing of people without just having to find out through inputs and then getting outputs? What is the white box, gray box equivalent to seeing how people, why they are the way they are?
A really simple way, and often the best way to start, is to just take a few minutes every day to stop. If you have a meditation or sitting practice, then do that. If you don't, that's fine. You don't have to do any of that if it doesn't work for you. Just take a few minutes, sit, feel your feet on the floor, your butt on the seat, your back against the back of your chair wall. Whatever parts of you are touching things, feel that. Feel the weight of you on there. Take some deep breaths and then give yourself a few minutes where you're not trying to do anything specifically and just see what comes up. Not trying to find out where they're coming from or what it means or any of that. Just what's happening. Make notes if you want, by writing it down, speaking to your phone or recorder, painting a picture, whatever way you want to do it. Just let it go so you can look at it, examine that later. And then after you've done that for a few minutes, just ask, what's the one thing to focus on today? And let yourself know what feels most important. And give yourself a minute or two with that. And then you can get up, go on with your day, focus on that one thing. Don't do anything else. Just start with that one thing. If you happen to get it done, then you can do this process again, take another few minutes, find out what's the next one thing. This is giving you space to understand what's going on. And oftentimes, especially for us in software, who so often have both been told explicitly by business that we're supposed to be logical. leave our hearts and bodies and spirits at the door, along with our coats and bags and lunch bag. And then also, for us in tech especially, we often have gotten into technology, into software, specifically so we don't have to deal with emotions. So we may not know, or we may actually not want to know what's going on. And so giving ourselves a little space in a safe way to get a little more in touch with that can help us understand what really is most important. And that's going to be what's most productive in moving forward with the job that we have in front of us, with our bigger goals at work and life and everything else. Even if that goal is, I don't have a goal, I just go with what feels right the next step. We still need time to understand what's the right next step.
That's good. You said that your purpose is to help people live in harmony with themselves and others. And a primary way that you do that, you say, is by asking questions. And is there a go-to question that you may ask first and foremost when you're doing a new engagement, a new consulting engagement, or learning about somebody for the first time?
Where I almost always start is, what prompted you to take this time with me today? Because that helps me know where they are. That helps me know what was on their mind when they set up the conversation. And while I could ask this when they booked the meeting, through my website, through my scheduler, that was probably not right before we get on the call. So what's most important for them by the time we're actually talking may have changed. And that gives me then an in to start asking questions and understanding, what do you mean by that? What's going on in your life that's the thing that's top of mind for you right now?
What's your response if they say, I don't know, Michael, there's a lot on my mind. I don't know where to start. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know how to answer that. Like, how do you pivot to that kind of response?
That's fine, John. I find myself in a similar situation a lot, that I don't know exactly what's going on. So let's just talk about it a little bit. What is top of mind for you right now? And I give you space to answer. If you're still not sure, keep coming back to, I don't really know. Then I can say something like, sounds like you've got a lot going on. You're not certain what to focus on. You're not even certain what's top priority for now. Does that sound right? And just keep probing on it. They're coming to me for help. They have some idea of how I help, even if they just blindly hit my website and hit the book a link call without reading anything about me. Then they still have some idea that I'm able to help them in some way. And the more I can help them get clarity on what's going on for them, how they think they would like my help, then we can get into what help they're really looking for. And then we can both decide, am I the right person to help them? And gaining that clarity is another way to describe everything that I do in working with leaders. Sometimes I say that the questions I ask are always to reframe and clarify. And reframe is to give you a new point of view on your situation that may help you understand a little better. And then clarify to help you get that clearer picture, understanding of what are you really hoping for out of this call, out of the work that you're doing, out of the problem you're trying to solve, out of the relationship that you're struggling with, whatever we're talking about right now.
That's good. Let me give you a few titles of some of your podcasts. And and ask a question around those. For example, how to build hope when you have none. The real reason your team isn't listening. Why your success feels empty. And is your work self holding you back? Some of those topics, some of those questions and ideas are tactical, and some are almost metaphysical. Is there a trigger in you that tells you, Michael, this is a metaphysical question, or this is a more tactical one, and give them specific strategies?
I think what I find is they always intermix. This is one of the reasons I talk about heart, mind, body, and spirit, and not just one or two of those, because they always interrelate. I don't believe in work-life balance or trying to separate work from life, because I find they always intermix. It's all the same thing. We may have different areas of focus or intent or expectations when we're at work versus when we're not at work. And even within work, when we're talking with our manager versus someone who's reporting to us versus a peer versus a customer, those are all probably different intents, different expectations, different hopes of what will come out from that. And the best way to move that conversation, that situation, that relationship forward is almost always a mix of very low level, very specific, this concrete thing to do, and also keeping in mind the bigger picture, the metaphysical view, if you will, to use your words, of what's going on, what's the bigger direction that we're doing, where do they, everyone else who's involved, whether they're directly part of the conversation right now or not, where are we all hoping that things are headed? So all of that matters and is an integral part of that conversation. For which thing to focus on at any particular time, I rely on all of the data I'm bringing in from you, from our environment, whatever I'm receiving from anyone else in the room, in the conversation, what I'm receiving more indirectly from people who are not there actively engaging or even in the room or part of the conversation, and everything that I know about you and everyone else involved, what's going on in the world at large, and what all of my inputs are telling me of what my guidance is saying is the right thing to do next. And always trying to add in lots of, how is that landing for you, John? What am I missing? Did I get that right? Opportunities for you to tell me what I'm missing, and for you to give me data that I might be missing about what's really going on for you. Because much as I and other people have implied I should be able to read your mind, I cannot read your mind. I cannot really know what's going on for you. I can't know your experience. I can only simulate what your experience is likely to be inside myself, and then give that back to you and ask how close I am.
That's good. Today in the news, it's a tough day for people at Amazon and Target. Of course, tough for the people who have been laid off, but what about the managers left behind with staff that's still there, who are feeling a certain way, right? Or feeling a range of emotions about not being laid off. As a manager, for those managers still at work, faced with this big news, what's the balance that they have to find with being a therapist for their team and being tactical like, okay, this team, this is what this means, this is what we have to do now. What would be your advice for the managers and the employees that are still, like, maybe not yet laid off, but have employment and are dealing with this news of their colleagues not being around anymore?
This is a tough day for those set of people. Yesterday was a tough day for other sets of people. Tomorrow will be a tough day for other sets of people for all sorts of reasons. As a leader, whether we are a manager officially responsible through the org chart for these people, or someone else in or around the team that people look to for guidance, it's helping people understand what's going on for them right then, acknowledging what's going on for you, and making a space where the people you're interacting with can take in, accept what you're saying, your experience is, and then help you understand what their experience is. I've never found a formula that is going to be right in every situation, or even if you're a manager with 30 people reporting up to you and you just had layoffs that decimated half of your team, then this is the thing to do. Never found something like that. What I do have are a bunch of heuristics, which all boil down to let your people know what's going on for you, invite them to let you know what's going on with them, and help them to have that conversation with whoever is going to best help them understand, move through, let go of that experience, and move on to the next thing. In business, it's more explicit. What I find is true in all of life, that we always have a balance between focusing on the touchy-feely, squishy people stuff, what's going on right now, helping people deal with the thing that they just experienced, and also moving forward on the business goals, on the life goals. Kids still need to be fed. Pets still need to be walked. Bills still need to be paid. Appointments still need to be met. And the right balance isn't going to be probably static from moment to moment, let alone day to day or week to week or month to month. It's going to fluctuate. And maybe the most important life skill is understanding how to navigate those and understand for yourself what is the right thing to focus on right now. When is it time to switch to something else?
Yeah, there's a lot of posts on LinkedIn about giving up and never give up and don't give in, but there's merit to giving up. It's knowing what to give up, right? And do you have heuristics around that, rules of thumb, where people may feel like, oh, I can't give up, I never give up, and there are times when it's a lost cause or a sunk cost or something. So for you, how do you advise them to not feel guilty about giving up when it may be essential? Or the opposite, don't give up and stay true to that inner compass.
For me, the idea of giving up or not is a false ideal of, I believe I have to stand behind a choice that I made. When my experiences, but it's always worked best for me and works best for many of my clients, is all that matters is what's the right next step? What is the next thing to do? It may be that next step, next push of the wheel, next crawl, is next scoot along the floor, is always in service of the same goal. And it may be that we don't even have a goal. We just know there's something we're headed towards, and we don't know how to describe it or explain it or find it. So it's not, do I give up or not? It's, what's the next step? If the best next step for me is to continue in the direction I was going, then let's do that. Maybe other people would call that not giving up. If the best next step is to go in a completely different direction, let's do that. Maybe other people will call that giving up. So much of my life has been all sorts of twists and turns and sideways and ups and downs and ins and outs that oftentimes to someone else likely appeared to be me giving up or throwing away or stopping or completely changing directions. For me at the time, it sometimes appeared like I was throwing things away, giving up, going in a completely different direction. As I gain experience for myself and as I help leaders look at their experiences over time, there's always some through line that holds steady that is pulling us forward, pushing us forward, helping us move on, that we're heading towards, even when we don't know what that is. There's something that we want, that we don't have, that we're trying to understand better and get closer to.
I think many people fear regret. How do you help them not fear regret as a manager or as a leader?
Regret can be tough. Because regret is us looking back and saying, now that I have a whole bunch more data, I really wish I'd made a different choice. The one thing that often helps is putting ourselves back as much as we can into the frame of reference that we had at that point in time and reminding ourselves, what data were we aware of? Not even what data we had, because maybe data was sitting there that we hadn't noticed. And in retrospect, we say, oh yeah, I really knew this and this and this. But at that point in time, you hadn't recognized it. So it wasn't there for all intents and purposes. Just doing that can give a lot of grace and forgiveness for choices that we made in the past. Another exercise that can be useful is saying, okay, so if I was in that situation right now, what would I do differently? That can help us recognize the growth that we've had. This is the decision I made then based on the data that I recognized. This is the decision I would make now based on the data that I now recognize. Oh wow, that's so much more aligned with who I am, with where I feel I'm going, with what I feel I'm here to do. And then we can turn that source of fear, of mourning, of despondency into celebration, into joy, into excitement of, oh my gosh, I have grown so much since that time, whether that was 20 years ago or 2 hours ago.
Yeah, that's where I want to pivot to the people that have been laid off recently and who may be feeling regret. I should have done more. I shouldn't have done that. Or whatever it is. And I think that's good advice you just gave, is remember you didn't have that data at the time. So let's focus on the people now in this transition that was no fault of theirs and are in a new situation. When you think about those people today, what do you want them to know about what's going to happen to them that you are very sure what's going to happen to them in some way? Because we've all had a similar transit, maybe a traumatic transition. But if you could fast forward those people to a year from now in their lives, what are they likely to experience that you've seen of others who have gone through this transition?
One way to understand what we experience as we go through a layoff or any transition is the Satir Change Model, which I dearly love. And comes from Virginia Satir, who is a family therapist, developed this as a way to explain the process that she and everyone she worked with went through as they experienced a change. And here we start out in status quo, where things are what they are. We know how to handle it. We're not necessarily happy here. May not be where we want to be at all, but we know how to do things. We know kind of what's going to come coming. We expect what's going to happen, and that's often what happens. Then along comes a foreign element, which may be, hey, I just got laid off, which may be, hey, all my people just got laid off, or half my team just got laid off, or my spouse or friend or parent or kid just got laid off. Then we go into resistance. What do you mean? I just got laid off. I can't get laid off. I have a mortgage. I have car payments. I have kids to put through college. I have bills to pay. I have food to put on the table. All the things. And we may be here a long time, while other people going through the exact same situation may zip through it. Maybe they weren't happy at all at work and you loved it. So they're excited to get laid off because they were going to leave anyway. Now they get a severance package instead of just leaving. The next is we head into chaos. And this is where we are trying to make sense of the new world we are in, and we have no idea how to do this. This time can be really confusing because even in the depths of our despair, we may get super excited for periods of time, or even a long period of time. I just got laid off. Oh my gosh, I don't have money coming in anymore. I don't know what's going to happen. This also means I don't have to miss my kid's baseball game, dance recital, spelling bee competition. I can spend all of November home with family making cookies or building furniture or whatever it is that I'd like to do with my family or with myself. Why am I excited to be laid off? I don't have money coming in. People are relying on me. What's going on? What's wrong with me? I must be really broken. At some point, transforming idea shows up, which is a way to turn this chaotic world, the foreign element of being laid off in this example, into a way to move forward that makes our life, our situation, better in some way that matters to us. Maybe that I got so much severance as part of my layoff that I don't have to work for 6 months or 3 months or even a month. This is great. I haven't had that much time off in 20 years. Maybe it's, now that I'm a couple days not having to go into that place anymore, I was really unhappy and I just had never given myself the space to understand. Maybe it's someone saw my post on LinkedIn that I'd been laid off and offered me a job that is amazing. Maybe it's just I can sit around in my pajamas all day and not worry about anything. As we put the transforming idea into practice, sometimes it's exactly what we need, and we move on into integration. We find that we know exactly how to integrate it into our life, into our situation. Everything goes hunky-dory the very first time. It's all unicorns and rainbows and magic, and we're off into new status quo, where we are once again in a place where we know how things are going and what to expect and how to handle what's coming up. And it may be that that transforming idea was completely wrong and that we head back into chaos. Well, that didn't work. I'm never going to get out of here. Until another transforming idea shows up and we go into integration, playing with it. And maybe this time we find that the transforming idea helps, but it's not enough on its own. And so again, we go back into chaos. until we find another transforming idea to cooperate with the second one we had. And through this cycle of around and around and around enough, we get through integration, we land up in that new status quo. So simply knowing that this is what's happening, now we have words that we can put to our experience. And for talking amongst yourself and the other managers, you and your peers, you and your team, you and your family. So shared language helps share experience. Then also, this is a predictable path. The amount of time you spend in any one phase will vary from person to person, and for any particular person, oftentimes from situation to situation. Knowing that there will be an end to your resistance, unless you resist that, and knowing what's coming after that you're going to head into chaos, it can make it easier to let go of the resistance, knowing that there will be a light at the end of the tunnel, and that the way out will be a transforming idea that goes in integration and may send you back into chaos a few times, can make it a little less scary. And then we can just put a map of this up on the wall and every day say, where am I feeling today? I'm really down in chaos, or I'm kind of back in resistance, or I'm really high up in integration. So knowing where we are can make a big difference in making our way through.
Yeah, you've been in tech longer than I have, 35 years plus. It sounds like iterative development. I mean, I know you've had experience as a TPM and a product manager. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like agile with a lowercase a, but agile with an uppercase A in terms of what can we learn today about what we're building and what do we do about it? Like daily stand-ups, like where we get together and we share our experience about problems, and then what do we do? Is that a fair comparison?
100%. One person who has read my upcoming book, The Resilient Tech Leader, which publishes in February, said, you have taken the best parts of software development and applied them to personal development. And this was absolutely in my mind as I've developed the process that I go through in the book, is what are all the lessons I've learned through my long time in software development of helping that go better, more encouraging that to be the result close to what we want, and bringing all that into other parts of my life. This is something I learned from Michael Bolton, the tester, not the singer, among others, is that good ideas in one context often apply and can be just as useful in another context. And so what I've done my entire life is taken bits and pieces from every system environment that I encountered, taken the parts of those that worked for me and integrated those into my own system and synthesized something that works for me. And then as I moved more and more to working with other people, of then refining that so that it worked for each of them, which is a delicate balance between this is the process, this is the system that everyone will experience in some fashion, similar to how Virginia Satir built her change model. And also, here are all the knobs and dials and sliders to customize each of these steps to you, because no system is going to be perfect for anyone except the person who built it.
Incidentally, Michael Bolton has been the guest of one of Michael, your podcasts. And so if people are curious about that, they can check that out. You've talked to a lot of people, one of which I was going to ask about. One of the most popular, apparently, is Keith Hopper, where you talk about navigating uncertainty, which is a perfect topic that we're on now in a way. You have a lot of advice and information via your guests that you've had over the years on your podcast. So on that particular one with Keith about navigating uncertainty, you said everything we do is something we've never done before. Everything we do is something we've never done before. Can you explain that a bit more, especially for people who may be in this transition now?
We can never be in the situation that we've been in before because we're always a second older. Some percentage of ourselves have replaced themselves. We have more data than we had a moment ago. We are a little older than we were a moment ago. Our body is working a little differently, whether that's more stiffly or more smoothly or more something elsely than it was a moment ago. So even if we're doing something that we have done 100 million times, we've never done it before the person that we are right now. Which means that, and so we never know what's going to happen. We have maybe strong expectations about what's going to happen. It may be that every other time we've done this, this exact same thing seems to have happened. We have no idea if that's what's going to happen next. It's like all those people at Amazon and Target woke up this morning saying, I'm going to work today. And then they found out they're not. They had never been in that exact moment before. And so we can never be 100% certain of what the outcome will be of the next moment, and the moment after that, and the moment after that. For some of us, that is frightening, terrifying. How do I know how to act? How can I handle this? I need some certainty. And for those people, I would say, while you've never been in this moment before, you know all the moments you have been in before. You have a foundation of you. Use that as a basis for moving forward into the next moment and discovering what happens. For some of us, this is super freeing. This is great. I don't know what's going to happen. I get to explore everything. Everything is brand new. It's great. And a danger here is losing track of who we are. Because if we're always just looking forward, we can forget that the tip of our nose or whatever part of ourselves is out in front of us isn't the only part of us, and often isn't even the most important part of us, and isn't there on its own for sure. So remember that all the rest of you is there, all of your experience, and consider how you might want to use all of that to play with this unknown moment that's here.
Yeah, play with this unknown moment. I love that. It's something you said triggered one of the questions that happens to align nicely with what you just said. It has to do with one of your first podcasts with John Gates on how to negotiate, where he said, you don't have to be someone that you're not. And you said, I really aligned with that. And that's important to remember, especially with the things you just said about really being a great antidote to regret. That you've never done this before. You may think you have, but you're completely different now. All circumstances being different now. And so I think what you said earlier about taking time to find out, maybe to say, who am I now, is important. Like you're suggesting, especially in this transition. You posted recently that a big shift you can make today is realizing that not every shift has to be a big one.
Yes.
And so talk about that a bit, especially in light of what's happening today.
Big shifts can be overwhelming and scary. And we oftentimes have expectations of what they will create that don't come to pass. I leave my current job and go to a new one. Of course, everything is going to be better. Well, some things will be better. Maybe a lot of things will be better. Maybe even everything. More likely, one or two things, if not more, are not going to be what you hope for. Every big shift is really a series of small shifts. And even if it's a titanic shift, like getting laid off, we can break that down into a bunch of little tiny shifts. So getting laid off is a drastic change in our situation. We can take that in little tiny bites. Like the old joke about how do you eat an elephant? One spoonful at a time. How do you deal with being laid off? Or one step at a time. So, okay, I got laid off. What's the first thing I need to do? Maybe come to terms with getting laid off. That's still a huge thing to do. What's the first thing I need to do to help myself recognize, come to terms with getting laid off? Maybe I need to go back to bed. Maybe I need to go binge watch some television show, or all 9 hours of the extended Lord of the Rings. Maybe I need to go for a long walk with myself or with 20 of my closest friends. Maybe I need to go have a party, celebrate I can go have a party and celebrate, regardless of what else is going on. Do that, then come back and look at what's the next thing I need to do. What's the next thing that feels right to do? What's the next feeling? Just doing that over and over and over and over. I call these tiny steps and tiny experiments. And there's always, if a step feels too big to take, there's always a smaller step that we can take. One of the things I love about the metric system is we have names for all those smallernesses. And I talk about these in terms of experiments because experiments don't succeed or fail. They just give us data. So what feels like the right next thing to do? Well, let's do that. And then what data does it give me? I don't feel any better than I did before. Maybe I even feel worse. Okay. So what's the next thing to try? What's the next thing to try? What's the next thing to try? Even when we have a great big goal in mind that we're headed towards, the path that we take to get there often isn't a linear path. And for people like me, and like I know you are, John, who those big goals have never really been there. And even if they were, the path to get there has been completely unclear. And this is fantastic because we don't have to know. We can just focus on what's the next thing that feels right. And if that's all that we do, we will get closer to where we're headed. If we can add on top of that understanding of what do we believe? What are our base beliefs? What is our primary process of enacting change in the world? What is our perpetual puzzle that we're always trying to answer and helps us engage with the world and integrate in with other people? Then the easier time we have of aligning the steps that we take with who we are and staying in that right next step.
A word that comes to mind that you just triggered for me, and maybe this is in Satir's work, is congruence, where your inside matches your outside. You're not in conflict within yourself with survival rules that say, I must be a good manager or I will die. I must be always there for my staff. I learned this once as a manager, that I had competing rules, survival rules. One, an open door policy. You can always come into my office. And two, I must always have the right answer. So those survival rules, and they're survival rules. In other words, if I don't do them, I feel a certain kind of death, a failure, a regret. I'm not who I want to be. And so I realized it was incongruent with those two rules. Once I knew those rules, I had those rules. So today, for many people, might be a good time to think about, like some of the questions that you postulated. What force drives you? What principles guide you? The one thing you want your team to do, and now it's not your team anymore, it's now what do you want to do? And what strengths do you have that support doing that one thing? You have a really great cadre of questions that are evocative and provocative, not only that you have asked other people, I'm sure as a manager, but things we could ask ourselves, which is hard, actually harder to do sometimes, is turn the microscope or the scope onto us. So I think that the topic of congruence is very important to how we get there. Do you have some ideas around how we can know if we're incongruent and may not even realize it?
Yes, I call these signals notice me nudges. And we have these for...
Notice me nudges. Okay.
because it's something's going on. Notice me, please. We have these signals on every part of our life, helping us recognize that we are not in alignment with who we are. A couple ways I've to work with these. One is to reflect back on times where things have gone very differently than you hoped, and feel back into what were all the things in the environment that I may have missed then, or that I noticed and didn't understand. That a feeling in my gut, my toe was tingling. I was super antsy. I just couldn't sit still. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I was super, super hungry, or I didn't want to eat for a week. Make a note. And then do the same for situations where everything was going perfectly. Again, what was going on? How did you know that everything was going perfectly? Now you have a set of draft notice me nudges. So now take those and go back into other situations where those were present and examine, how did that situation go? How well was I heeding those nudges, and what were the outcomes? And to the reverse, look at situations where those nudges were missing completely, or you didn't heed them at all. How did those situations go? And now you have some refinements. And by doing this process over and over, you can get closer and closer to what the right answers are for you right now. Another thing that can be really useful is asking people for stories about, what's a time when you saw me super in alignment with who I am? What was your experience of me? And the reverse of, what was a time when you experienced me being super out of alignment with who I am? What did you experience? They will have noticed, felt, seen, smelled, tasted, heard different things than we did. And so their perspective will help us see things that may be difficult for ourselves to see. Maybe they noticed that we were super fidgety when we didn't. Or they noticed that we became super unfidgety when we felt super anxious. And then put these into practice. Okay, I've got this draft set of notice me nudges. I'm going to pay attention to those today and see how that goes. At the end of the day, reflect back, or into the week, if that longer time frame works better for you. And go through this exercise again. When did these show up? When did I heed them? How much was I able to recognize them in the moment? How did those situations turn out? And then just work on this iteratively. One of the things I do when I work on this with clients is we have a big board that I won't try to pull up an example right now, where we have squares for each of these parts of our quick reference card, I call it. And within each of those, we have stickies where we list each of the base beliefs that we have. We're talking about base beliefs. And stickies for the notice me nudges that help them know how aligned they are in a moment with each of those base beliefs. And we color code each of these stickies for how confident are they that this is the right answer. So we have a way to keep track of everything, whether we know it's completely wrong or believe it's absolutely perfect, and a way to adjust that over time. And we can also color code the whole square to know how confident am I that this is the full set. So we know that, well, I have 5 base beliefs. Those are all pretty accurate, and I'm positive that I'm missing something. Having that representation, I find, takes a lot of angst away, because it makes explicit, this is what I think right now. This is what I understand right now. I have low confidence that this is correct, and that's okay. You don't have to ever have perfect answers for any of this. All that matters is you know what you understand right now, using that to guide your movement forwards, and keeping in mind how accurate you feel that is, so you can know what to look for as you make adjustments.
Well, you've had a long career in tech. You've interviewed a ton of people. You have clients you've given advice to. You have experience with a lot of models, like the Satir Change Model. And what vehicle for you worked best to help you know what your base beliefs were? Was there a seminar, a podcast, a book, an experience that gave you this epiphany? I think my base beliefs are X, Y, Z.
My journey has been no single thing ever worked as a whole, other than maybe this Satir Change Model and Strength Finders, the Gallup Strength Finders assessment. Everything else I've encountered, I've taken some bits from and dropped the rest of it behind. This is something that is, for me, what works for lots of other people almost never works for me. Every system that I've tried on, these are the 10 steps or the 100 steps for getting from A to B. Those steps are never the steps I need. 1 or 2 of them will be perfect, and the rest of them are completely wrong. So I haven't had a single thing that gave me an epiphany. What has helped me is the continual reflection. Now, one activity that often helps me, enlightens me into new understandings of some aspect of myself is conversations like this with someone else. You asked me, what question do I wish that someone had asked me and no one ever has, so that you could ask me that? And I said, I don't have them, because any question I have that I wish someone to ask me, I'll just ask myself and then talk about it. What I find most valuable is the question I never considered to ask. And that's why I adore conversations with you and every conversation I've had on my podcast and every other conversation I have with clients and everyone else, is that I always walk away from that conversation with some new idea, some perspective I hadn't considered.
I think every consultant needs a consultant at one point, especially if it gets acute. If anxiety or self-doubt hits you at 3 a.m. What is your go-to? Is it a person? Is it a book? Is it a method that will help you get congruent again or talk you off the ledge? Despite all the advice you've given other people, despite all of the podcasts and all of the material you've written and all of the experiences that you've had, is there something that is really reliable for you to get you back to center?
One is I have a bunch of coaches for different parts of my life, and so I always have them to go to. And another is what we talked about at the beginning of just take a few minutes, feel myself in the world, take some deep breaths, and understand what's going on for me right now. What am I feeling?
Yeah, I think there's maybe you've heard of this center, enter, turn.
Yes.
As a way to ground yourself, center yourself, enter the room, and then adapt as needed to the energy of the room. I think that's my paraphrase of that. Have you heard of that before? And if so, what's been your experience with those 3 words?
I have heard that, and that's something I try to practice in every situation. I've had many experiences of leaving out one or the other of those steps, often trying to jump straight to turn without first entering or centering, and that rarely goes well. And this works, that sequence is important not just when we are entering a situation with other people, it's also important when we're entering a situation with ourselves. If we try to shift our behavior without first centering into ourselves and then entering into an explicit conversation with ourselves, that shift is at best inflicting help and at worst an attack. And many of the people who come to me saying, I keep trying to make this change and it just never works, I need your help. This is what has been going on, that they have been trying to shift themselves without first entering into a conversation with themselves, and without before that centering into themselves. For people who this is all very abstract and they don't understand what this could mean in practice, jumping straight to turn would be like me walking into your office, John, and grabbing your head and shoving you around and saying, look at this. You are probably not going to be very happy with me. Especially if I come in all angry because of whatever the thing I want you to look at. It's probably going to go much more smoothly and much closer to the outcome I desire if I storm up to your office and stop before I go in. Take some deep breaths. Let all the anger, maybe I can't let go of it, but at least I can calm it down a little bit. Maybe knock on your door rather than storming in and say, "Hey, John, is this a good time to talk? I'd like a few minutes." Wait for you to answer. Negotiate a time that works for both of us if this isn't good. And then come in and say, "John, I really need your help with this fire in the kitchen." And this can all be done in a short amount of time. It's not like we have to, if we don't have even 3 minutes to go through the whole process, we can do this in a few seconds. But even just that momentary pause of, "John, there's a fire in the kitchen. I really need your help." It'll make a huge difference in your ability to assist me in my request.
Yeah, this gets to like mastery of like any martial arts movie where the master is calm, centered, isn't fooled, isn't likely to fall into traps, assesses the situation first. Neo in the Matrix, Indiana Jones in the caves, trying to not like be aware that there are traps everywhere set for you, and you don't have to fall into them. Although if you do, okay, you've learned something. But center, enter, turn is part of that. And also going slow to go fast, they say, is like getting the landscape first, getting some data before you act. Because your impulse may be right, but if you just take another second or two, that might be useful. Which leads to my question about uncommon leadership. There's common leadership, and I'd like to ask you about that. And there's uncommon leadership, to which you've listed 6 actions on your site of uncommon teams. But before I get into that, what to you is an important difference between common leadership and uncommon leadership?
Common leadership is what we experience every day. That it's fine, it works. Organization more or less is going in the direction that leadership wants it to. Employees, staff are more or less okay. They keep showing up. They may not be super excited about what's going on, but they're not so horrified that they leave. Uncommon leadership is resilient. It acts with confidence because the leader knows who they are. They know how to help their staff understand how they are, who they are. They have conversations about how to help all of this work together. Uncommon leadership is adaptable and it acts with intention, where intention doesn't necessarily mean slow. It's understanding, taking a moment to know what do I mean to happen in the next moment? What am I doing to help that happen in the way I wish? How do I know whether the outcome, how close the outcome is to what I was aiming for? How do I take the information we gather back into myself, talk about this with my team, and decide what to do next? And uncommon is full of ease. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It often isn't. It can be very challenging. It can still be easeful, where we can go into it with a bit of style and grace, whatever that means to us. And we can approach it with play rather than fear or trepidation or rigidity. And the truly uncommon leaders are able to do this for themselves, to help their teams do this, and also, often the hardest part, to give themselves and their teams the grace when they're not resilient, confident, adaptable, intentional, easeful, or playful. A paradox I discovered about myself, and one of the transforming moments in my relationship with myself was when I realized I actually love myself even when I don't love myself. And this is what uncommon leaders are, that they can be in relationship with themselves and with their teams and with their organization, even when they are not at all in relationship with themselves or their teams or their organizations.
Wow, that's really good. That's really good. It's at the heart of another paradox where you say support play with courage is one of the actions of uncommon teams. The paradox is courage requires fear. It's not courage if you're not afraid. And I find that a really fascinating paradox and a grounding principle for me as a leader when I'm afraid, unsure, maybe even a manager today who has had to lay off part of their team and also welcome someone whose first day is today. Same team. They got the job. That job was safe. That's not under the layoff. What a paradox. And what a tough situation for a manager, and a chance to be an uncommon leader, to be able to embrace the transition, both negative, you could argue, for the ones being laid off, and the positive for the ones being brought on. I think, to me, from what you've defined as uncommon leadership, that's a situation that provokes this uncommon nature of being a leader. What do you think of that situation?
The situations like being laid off often encourage the uncommonness to arise from leaders and teams. The true uncommon leaders bring this out in the most quotidian of moments, all of the day-to-day. They know that it's not the big impactful, the headline moments that may be what people remember, but it's not what people will really remember. What people really remember when they look back on their teams, on their time working with that leader, is all of the other times and how they felt it.
Yeah, that's good. It's there's a lot of principles to wrestle with and to remember and to apply in any situation. And I think, to me, doing my research on your work, it's finding that heuristic, like you said, that rule of thumb of, because that imperfect solution that you said may be perfect in one context and imperfect in another, but you don't know. 10 minutes from now, it could work. So I wanted to consider the foundation of your work so far as a consultant, as a leader, as a technologist, and as a podcaster, to ask you, given all of the content that you've provided to our larger community, both tech and non-tech, leadership and non-leadership, what's where are you going next? What perhaps is not fulfilled yet in your work that you'd like to focus on in the next year, that brings you to a place where you're feeling richer around the legacy that you've contributed so far?
I never know where I'm going next. My book is a solid summary of the first evolution of leadership, resiliency, and the process that has worked for many, many leaders and will probably work well enough for you. And I can say this with confidence, both from having taken many leaders through this, and also because built in is it's all customizing to who you are. What is starting to crystallize for me is the second evolution of uncommon leadership, of adaptability with intention, and how to bring that to a similar standard, I'll say, into a form that I can put this into a book, knowing that my understanding of how this works and how to guide people through it is probably not going to change dramatically. I am in the last year for me was really moving out of my own journey through the third evolution of leadership, of being easeful with play. And now I'm moving into discovering what the fourth evolution is, which I have no idea yet because I'm just getting into it. So that's one of the things that's exciting me and pulling me forward, is discovering, okay, what's here next, and what do I get to go discover for myself, so that then I can help guide leaders through that are working through the first, second, and third evolutions. What is coming next for them, so that I can get them even more excited about going through all of that work, so that they can get here.
Well, here's my last question, Michael. And I use this in interviews sometimes, job interviews, as I'm the interviewer. I say, what didn't I ask you that you want me to know about you and what you'd like to do next?
This is also my favorite question, and I often also ask it at the end of conversations. I would say you didn't ask me, how do I know this works for anyone else? And aside from all the proof of people that I have guided through this process, and I know it has worked for them, I know it works because I built this system through my own experience. This system worked for me. That's where it came out of. And this is how I know it will work for you. It's because I have been whatever's going on for you in just about any part of your life. I have experienced exactly that or something pretty similar. And I built this system from finding all the bits and pieces from other systems that worked for me. My process, the exact process I used, is not going to work for anyone else. The dials and tweaks and sliders that I found for adjusting this works for a whole lot of people. It still may not work for you. That's okay. I am not the right person for a lot of people. I invite you to consider, even if it only works a little bit, maybe that little bit will be exactly what you need to help you move forward right now. That's what I would say. he didn't ask?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. It gets to the heart of, there's something to this. I don't know what it is, but I know it works for me. And maybe it won't work for you, but it'll work for someone maybe like me or in my situation. And maybe that's good enough for now. To follow that impulse to share an idea or a solution with something else is fun. I think for as much for me as it is for you, as we were talking before the podcast about what gives you joy, and you said it was seeing someone else get it, someone else light up and have that epiphany. And I think that's, to me, when I look at, when I try to relate to what you've built and the body of work that you've presented with these podcasts and on your website and in your experience. Yes, there's something to this. We may share similar paradigms like the Satir Change Model or center, enter, turn, or something like that. Go slow to go fast. And there are some fun tactical ways that you can advise people. But it's the metacognitive stuff that really applies to anybody as a human being who wants and yearns or thinks they're onto something or follows their intuition. That it seems to be the large body of your work is about. And I think that's why it's so translatable and useful. And people just have to understand enough of, see themselves in you and vice versa, to distill what you took away from it. So that's why I think it works.
My deepest desire is to help people live in harmony with themselves and with others. And that requires having a perfect understanding of who we are and of who everyone else is, which of course we have no chance of doing on either for ourselves, let alone everyone else. But we can't get close enough that we can feel resilient in every moment. We can adapt our approach to what that moment is best served by. And we can't do this with ease, even when it's really hard.
Yeah, I have to say, Michael, your demeanor, your calm-mannered delivery of ideas is also very, very effective in terms of like studies done around our vagus nerve, right? The thing that makes us experience the world and gives us nerves, but also gives us drive, right? And polyvagal theory is about that, like the dorsal state and the vasovagal state and the dorsal vagal, the high energy and the low energy. And this is why a lot of people have like comfort animals. Like it's we can borrow another person's vagal state, especially as leaders. It's contingent upon us to think about that we radiate confidence, and it can be infectious, or we can stay the rock in the rapids and tell other people just by our actions and our tone, oh, I don't need to worry because they're not worried. They've been here before. I haven't. Maybe I can borrow their vagal state and their that calm. And I certainly appreciate people like that, because I tend to be high energy and talk fast and want to get to solutions. And sometimes going slower and more mannered is a more effective way to get to solutions.
Some situations, going slow and, well, I'd say every situation approaching with thought is going to go more productively than not. Some people listen to me and say, Michael, you talk so slow. I listen to you on 3x and it's still too slow. Can you just please talk faster? Which is great. Some situations, me talking at this speed and rate is going to be the most effective. Some situations, me bringing much higher energy and talking very fast and jumping around and doing lots of fun things is going to be way more productive. and everywhere in between. The more that we can access all sides of that, then the more we can adapt who we are into what that moment is best served by. Some situations, if some organizations will have a plethora will be best served by someone who is a lot of the time super high energy and talking fast and getting right to solutions like you are. Some organizations will be best served by someone who is always talking more slowly and calmly, the way I tend to do. If the organization best served by you hires me, we may be for a really interesting time. We're probably going to find find that they really do need to be more the way I am some of the time. And it still may be that the majority of the time, really, they should have just hired you. And if they just fire me and hire you, we're both going to be much more happy. So it's one of my base beliefs is whoever you are, the world is clamoring to have you in their life. You are perfect, even as you're growing. The person you are now is perfect. The person you are becoming is also exactly who you need to be right then, and people would love to have you in their life. Whatever unhappiness you're feeling is some combination of not understanding who you are and not being in the right people's lives.
Yeah, well said. Well, it's been my pleasure, Michael, to be journalist and a technologist with you in this podcast. You've given some insightful answers as usual, and I hope you felt good about this experience too, because it was a delight for me.
This has also been a delight for me, John. As I said earlier, my favorite thing to do is to talk with other people because I always get a new understanding. And every time someone asks me to explain who I am, how I work, how I help people debug themselves, I understand a little bit better how I do that and how to explain it. Thank you for this gift.
Oh, you're welcome, and congratulations on the 100th podcast. It's a fantastic milestone.
Thank you. And thank you, audience, for joining John and I today. We would each love to know what has helped you raise yourself up in your career. Thanks, and have a great day.